The harsh slap of leather reins against sweat-slicked horseflesh echoed across the dusty plains as Jillian Elden watched the only home she'd ever known grow smaller in the distance, her tears long since dried by the merciless Wyoming wind. It was 1876, and to her father, a failing farmer with 7 other mouths to feed, she was worth exactly 1 sturdy mule and $10 in cash, no more, no less. "Keep up now," barked the stranger beside her. A dour-faced man with tobacco-stained teeth who'd bought her from her father to be his housekeeper, or so he claimed. Jillian knew better. At 18, she understood what happened to girls sold to lonely men in these desolate territories. What neither of them expected was the tall figure blocking their path a mile down the road, a lone rider astride a magnificent black stallion, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. The sun at his back transformed him into an imposing silhouette against the endless sky. "That's far enough," the stranger called, his voice deep and steady as he urged his horse forward. Now Jillian could see him clearly, broad-shouldered, with a face weathered by sun and wind, yet still youthful. He couldn't be more than 25. "This ain't your concern, mister," her captor snarled, reaching for the rifle secured to his saddle. The rider's hand moved faster than Jillian thought possible, and suddenly a revolver was aimed steadily at the man's chest. "I'm making it my concern." His eyes flicked to Jillian, noting her tear-streaked face and the rope binding her wrists to the saddle horn. "How much did you pay for her?" The question hung in the air, absurd and terrible. Jillian felt sick. $20 and a mule. Fair price for damaged goods. Her captor spat, eyeing the gun warily. The mysterious rider's jaw tightened. "I'll give you $40 and 2 mules waiting at my ranch." "She's not going with you." "Who the hell do you think? Yates Darrow?" The rider cut him off. "Owner of the Double D Ranch." He tossed a small leather pouch that landed with a heavy chink at the man's feet. "That's $40. More than fair. The mules are yours when you come by the ranch tomorrow. My hands will be expecting you." Something in Yates Darrow's voice, or perhaps the steady aim of his Colt, convinced the man not to argue further. He snatched up the pouch, spat in the dirt, and glared at Jillian. "Take the little bitch. She ain't worth the trouble." Without another word, he wheeled his horse around and rode back the way they'd come, leaving Jillian alone with her unexpected savior. Yates holstered his weapon and approached slowly, as one might a spooked colt. "Let me help you with those," he said, nodding toward her bound wrists. Jillian flinched when he reached for her hands. "What do you want with me?" His eyes, a startling blue against his sun-bronzed face, met hers directly. "Nothing indecent, Mississippi. You have my word." "Your word means nothing to me," she replied, voice trembling with the last reserves of her courage. "Men's words are cheaper than water in these parts." To her surprise, he laughed, a genuine sound that softened the hard planes of his face. "Fair enough. Actions, then." He cut the ropes binding her with a small knife, careful not to graze her skin. "You're free to go wherever you please, but I offer you safe passage to my ranch, food, and honest work if you want it." Jillian rubbed her raw wrists, considering her options. She had nowhere to go, no money, and night would fall soon. "What kind of work?" "My housekeeper quit last month. Ranch house is falling to ruin, and I can't cook worth a damn. Pay is fair, room, board, and $10 a month." It was more than she'd ever been offered before. Still, suspicion clouded her judgment. "Why would you pay so much just to free me?" Yates' expression darkened. "My sister was sold to pay my father's debts when I was 14. Never saw her again." He adjusted his hat, eyes distant. "Besides, no human being should be traded like livestock." Jillian studied him, searching for deceit and finding none. With a deep breath, she made her decision. "I accept your offer, Mr. Darrow." "Yates," he corrected, offering a hand to help her down from the horse. "If we're to be sharing a roof, no need for formalities." The ride to the Double D Ranch took nearly 2 hours, during which Jillian learned that Yates had built his spread from nothing over the past 7 years. He'd arrived in Wyoming territory at 18 with little more than determination and a talent for breaking wild horses. Now, at 25, he owned 5,000 acres, 300 head of cattle, and employed 6 ranch hands. "It's not much to look at," Yates warned as they crested a hill overlooking the ranch. "But it's home." Jillian thought it was magnificent. The main house was modest but solid, built of locally hewn timber with a wide porch wrapping around 2 sides. Several outbuildings, a corral filled with horses, and a bunkhouse completed the picture. In the distance, cattle dotted the rolling grasslands. "It's beautiful," she said honestly. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Wait until you see inside before you make that judgment." He wasn't exaggerating. The interior of the ranch house looked as though a tornado had swept through. Dirty dishes were piled in the kitchen, clothes were strewn across furniture, and a layer of dust coated every surface. "I warned you," Yates said sheepishly. Despite everything, Jillian found herself smiling. "I've seen worse. This can be fixed." That evening, after showing her to a small but comfortable bedroom, my sister's room, had it built special. He explained Yates introduced her to the ranch hands over a simple meal of beans and salt pork that he insisted on preparing himself. "Boys, this is Miss Jillian Elden. She'll be keeping house for us from now on. You'll treat her with the same respect you'd show your own mothers, or you'll answer to me." The men, a motley crew of weather-beaten cowboys, nodded respectfully. An older man with silver-streaked hair extended a calloused hand. "Frank Miller, Miss. Foreman here for 5 years. Welcome to the Double D." Over the following weeks, Jillian transformed the chaotic ranch house into a proper home. She scrubbed floors, washed mountains of laundry, and prepared hearty meals that earned her the undying loyalty of the ranch hands. Yates, for his part, kept a respectful distance, always polite but never presumptuous. One evening, nearly a month after her arrival, Jillian found him on the porch, staring at the sunset with a troubled expression. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, offering him a cup of coffee. He accepted with a nod of thanks. "Just thinking about tomorrow's cattle drive. We're taking 300 head to Cheyenne. I'll be gone about 2 weeks. "Oh." Jillian was surprised by the disappointment she felt. "The house will be quiet without you all. Frank and young Tom will stay behind to keep an eye on things," Yates assured her. After a moment of hesitation, he added, "Would you do something for me while I'm gone?" "Of course. There's a trunk in my room, bottom of the wardrobe. It belonged to my mother. Might be some things in there you could use: sewing supplies, fabric." She was handy with a needle. He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly awkward. "Truth is, it's been closed up since she died 6 years ago. Might be time someone looked through it." Jillian understood the significance of what he was asking. "I'd be honored." The cattle drive departed at dawn the next day. As Yates rode past the house, he tipped his hat to Jillian, who stood on the porch watching the procession of men and beasts disappear into the morning mist. That afternoon, she entered Yates' bedroom for the first time. It was spartanly furnished but neat, the only room in the house he'd apparently tried to keep in order. The trunk was exactly where he'd said, a beautiful cedar chest with intricate carvings along its edges. Inside, Jillian found treasures: handmade quilts, delicate lace doilies, skeins of colorful thread, and yards of fabric in various patterns. Beneath these lay a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with a flowing feminine script: recipes, household remedies, and personal reflections on raising children in the harsh frontier. Tucked inside the journal was a daguerreotype of a young woman holding 2 children, a boy and a girl. The resemblance between the boy and Yates was unmistakable. This must be his mother and the sister he'd mentioned. Jillian's heart ached for the family torn apart by circumstance and hardship. Over the following days, Jillian put Mrs. Darrow's sewing supplies to good use, making curtains for the bare windows and cushion covers for the wooden chairs. She tried several of the recipes from the journal, delighting Frank and Tom with unfamiliar but delicious dishes. One evening, while mending one of Yates' shirts by lamplight, Jillian realized with startling clarity that she felt at home for the first time in her life. More surprisingly, she found herself missing Yates' quiet presence, his rare but genuine smile, the way he always thanked her for even the smallest task she completed. The cattle drive returned earlier than expected, the men dusty and exhausted but in high spirits after a successful sale. Yates appeared at the kitchen door as Jillian was preparing dinner, his hat in his hands and an expression of wonder on his face as he looked around the transformed house. "Welcome home," Jillian said, suddenly shy. "I hardly recognize the place," he admitted, taking in the new curtains, the polished furniture, the vase of wildflowers on the table. His gaze returned to her, something warm and appreciative in his eyes. "You've worked miracles." "Your mother helped," she replied, gesturing to the curtains. "I found the fabric in her trunk and followed some of her patterns." Emotion flickered across his face. "She would have liked that. She would have liked you, too." The words settled between them, heavy with meaning neither was ready to acknowledge. After dinner, Yates presented Jillian with a gift, a beautiful leather-bound book. "Picked it up in Cheyenne. Noticed you didn't have anything to read." The thoughtfulness of the gesture nearly undid her. "Thank you. No one's ever." She couldn't finish the sentence. "Well, there's a first time for everything," he said softly. As summer gave way to autumn, a comfortable routine developed at the Double D Ranch. Jillian expanded her duties beyond housekeeping, helping with the vegetable garden and even learning to ride under Yates' patient instruction. He, in turn, began spending more evenings at the house rather than with the men in the bunkhouse, often helping Jillian with small repairs or simply sitting in companionable silence as she sewed and he whittled or read the newspaper. "You never did tell me about your family," Yates said one evening as they sat on the porch watching a spectacular sunset paint the sky in fiery hues. Jillian tensed. "Not much to tell that you don't already know. My father was a poor farmer with too many children and not enough sense. My mother died giving birth to the twins 3 years ago, and he just sold you? Just like that. Times were hard," she said, the explanation sounding hollow even to her own ears. "The crops failed 2 years running. My brothers were needed for labor. My sisters were too young. I was expendable." Yates' hand covered hers, warm and calloused. "No one is expendable, Jillian. No one." The first snowfall came early that year, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. Jillian awoke to find Yates already outside, clearing paths between the buildings. She watched him through the frosted window, admiring the strength in his shoulders, the determination in his movements. When had admiration transformed into something deeper, something that made her heart race whenever he entered a room? That evening, disaster struck. One of the hands burst into the house during dinner, his face pale with urgency. "Boss, the north pasture fence is down. Cattle are scattered, and there's a storm front moving in fast." Yates was on his feet instantly. "Get the men. We need to round them up before they drift too far." "You can't go out there," Jillian protested, following him to the door. "The temperature's dropping by the minute." "Which is exactly why I have to go," he replied, already pulling on his heavy coat. "Those cattle will freeze to death otherwise." She knew arguing was futile. "Promise me you'll be careful." His gaze softened as he looked at her. "I promise." Hours passed with no word from the men. Jillian paced the house, keeping coffee hot and bandages ready, watching as the promised storm arrived with terrifying force. Wind howled around the eaves, driving snow against the windows in blinding sheets. Near midnight, the door burst open, admitting a blast of frigid air and two snow-covered figures supporting a third between them. It was Yates, conscious but clearly injured, his face ghostly pale beneath the ice crusting his beard. "Frostbite," Frank explained grimly as they lowered Yates onto the sofa nearest the fire. "Horse slipped in a drift. He was pinned underneath for near an hour before we found him." Jillian's medical knowledge was limited to what she'd learned from her mother and Mrs. Darrow's journal, but she acted with calm efficiency. She removed Yates' frozen boots and socks, alarmed by the bluish tinge of his feet and fingers. "We need to warm him gradually," she instructed, sending the exhausted men for basins of cool, not hot water. "Too much heat too quickly will cause more damage." Through the night, Jillian tended to Yates, gently bathing his extremities in water that slowly increased in temperature, wrapping him in blankets, and coaxing him to drink hot broth. By dawn, color had returned to his face, and he was sleeping normally. Frank found her dozing in a chair beside the sofa, her hand still resting on Yates' arm. "You saved his hands and feet, Miss Jillian. Doc Reynolds couldn't have done better." "I just followed what I've read," she demurred. The old foreman shook his head. "You did more than that. You cared enough to stay with him all night." He hesitated, then added, "The boss, he's a good man, best I've worked for, but he's been alone too long, carrying too many burdens by himself." "He has all of you," Jillian pointed out. "It's not the same as having someone to come home to, someone who looks at him the way you do." Before she could respond, Yates stirred, his eyes opening slowly to focus on her face. "Jillian, I'm here," she said quickly, leaning forward. "How do you feel?" "Like I got trampled by the entire herd." He attempted to sit up, wincing. "Did we lose many?" "Only 3, Frank reported. "The rest are accounted for. You focus on getting better, boss. We'll handle things." After Frank left, Yates caught Jillian's hand. "You've been up all night because of me. I couldn't leave you." His fingers tightened around hers. "Thank you for everything." The days of Yates' recovery brought them closer than ever. Confined to the house, he shared stories of his childhood, his dreams for the ranch, and the sister he'd never stopped searching for. Jillian, in turn, revealed her own past: the mother who taught her to read from a single treasured book, the younger siblings she'd practically raised, the dreams she'd buried of someday having a family of her own. "Why did you never marry?" she asked one afternoon as she changed the bandages on his healing hands. Yates was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. "Never found anyone who made me want to," he finally said. "Out here, a man needs more than just a wife. He needs a partner. Someone strong enough to face the hardships, but gentle enough to make it all worthwhile." His eyes met hers. "Someone like you." The words hung between them, fraught with possibility. "I'm just your housekeeper," Jillian reminded him softly. "Is that all you want to be?" Before she could answer, a commotion outside drew their attention. Frank's voice could be heard shouting orders, followed by the sound of horses approaching at speed. Yates struggled to his feet, accepting Jillian's supporting arm. "Something's wrong." They reached the porch just as 3 riders pulled up, dust swirling around their lathered horses. Jillian recognized the man in the center instantly: her father, thinner and more ragged than when she'd last seen him, but unmistakable. "There she is," he shouted, pointing at Jillian. "I've come for my daughter." Yates stepped in front of her protectively. "Mr. Elden, I presume?" "That's right." "And you're the man who stole my property." "Your property?" Yates' voice was dangerously quiet. Your daughter is a human being, not property. Jillian's father dismounted, swaggering forward. One of his companions Jillian recognized, her oldest brother followed. I sold her fair and square to Jim Barker. Then you came along and interfered. Barker wants his money back, and I ain't got it. So I'm taking her back. She's not going anywhere she doesn't want to, Yates said firmly. By now, several ranch hands had gathered, watching the confrontation warily. Jillian's father noticed and sneered. You think your men scare me? I got the law on my side. She's not of age. I'm 18, Jillian spoke up, finding her voice. I've been of age for months. Doesn't matter. You're still my daughter, no. The word was quiet but resolute. You gave up any right to call me daughter when you sold me for a mule and $10. Her father's face darkened with rage. You ungrateful little, he lunged forward, only to find his path blocked by Frank and two other ranch hands. I suggest you leave, Yates said coldly. Now, for a tense moment, it seemed her father might press the issue. Then, with a string of curses, he backed down. Fine, keep the worthless girl. But don't come crying when she brings you nothing but trouble. As they rode away, Jillian trembled with a mixture of relief and residual fear. Yates' arm came around her shoulders, steady and reassuring. He won't be back, Frank assured them. Men like that are all bluster. But the encounter left Jillian shaken. That evening, she found Yates in his study, poring over account books despite his still bandaged hands. I should leave, she announced from the doorway. His head jerked up. What? Why? My father could make trouble for you. Claims of kidnapping, theft. Let him try. Yates interrupted, rising from his chair. No court would side with a man who sold his own daughter. You don't know that. The law, hang the law. He crossed the room to stand before her. Jillian, I don't want you to go. Not now, not ever. The intensity in his voice stopped her protests. What are you saying? Instead of answering immediately, he took her hands in his. The day I found you on that road, something inside me knew. I told myself I was just doing what was right, but it was more than that. He drew a deep breath. I've been alone a long time, built this ranch, made something of myself, but it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough until you came. Jillian's heart pounded so loudly she was certain he must hear it. Yates. I love you, Jillian. I think I've loved you since that first day when you stood in my kitchen and weren't afraid to tell me what a mess it was. A smile touched his lips. Stay with me, not as my housekeeper, as my wife. Joy bubbled up inside her, unexpected and overwhelming. People will talk. They'll say you only married me because I love you more than my own life? Let them talk. His eyes searched hers. Unless you don't feel the same way. In answer, Jillian raised herself on tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. It was a gentle kiss, hesitant at first, then blooming into something deeper as his arms encircled her. I love you, she whispered against his mouth. I never thought I'd say those words to anyone. They were married 2 weeks later in the town church, with Frank standing as witness and the entire ranch turning out for the celebration afterward. Jillian wore a dress she'd made from silk found in Mrs. Darrow's trunk, and Yates presented her with a simple gold band that had belonged to his mother. I have something else for you, he said that evening, leading her to the study. On the desk lay a document, official-looking with elaborate script. This is the deed to the ranch. I've had it redrawn to include your name alongside mine. Double D Ranch now stands for Darrow and Darrow. Tears filled Jillian's eyes. Yates, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. Everything I have is yours now. Everything I am is yours. He cupped her face in his hands. No one will ever sell you or buy you again. You're not a possession, Jillian. You're my equal, my partner, my heart. Winter melted into spring, and with the new season came unexpected news. The stagecoach brought a letter addressed to Yates, postmarked from Colorado Territory. The handwriting was unfamiliar, feminine. Jillian watched as her husband's hands trembled opening it, his face transforming from curiosity to shock to overwhelming joy as he read. "It's my sister," he said, voice choked with emotion. "Yasmin. She's alive. Living in Denver with her husband and 2 children." He looked up, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. "She's been searching for me as long as I've been searching for her." 2 months later, a carriage arrived at the Double D, bringing Yasmin Darrow Cooper, her husband Daniel, and their children. The reunion between brother and sister was tearful and joyous, healing a wound that had festered for over a decade. "Thank you for not giving up on me," Yasmin said, embracing her brother for the 100th time. "I never could," Yates replied, "just like someone never gave up on me." His gaze found Jillian, who was showing their niece how to gather eggs from the henhouse. That evening, with the house full of family and laughter for the first time, Yates found Jillian on their favorite spot on the porch, watching the sunset. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "More than I ever dreamed possible." She leaned back against him, her hands covering his where they rested on her still flat stomach. "I have something to tell you," he stilled. "What is it?" Turning in his arms, Jillian looked up at the man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved. "Come spring, there will be another Darrow at the Double D Ranch." Joy dawned across his face like sunrise breaking over the prairie. "A baby? You're certain?" She nodded, laughing as he lifted her off her feet and spun her around. "Careful," she protested, breathless. "Precious cargo." He set her down gently, then dropped to his knees before her, pressing his ear against her stomach as if he might already hear the tiny heartbeat within. "Hello there, little one," he whispered. "You are already so loved." Looking up at Jillian, his eyes shining with unshed tears, Yates said, "From the moment I saw you on that road, something told me you were priceless, worth more than all the gold in Wyoming. I paid double what that man gave for you, but the truth is, I'd have given everything I owned." "You gave me something far more valuable than money," Jillian replied, running her fingers through his hair. "You gave me dignity, respect, a home, and love," he added, rising to his feet. "Don't forget love." "Never," she promised, sealing the word with a kiss. 1 year to the day from their first meeting, Jillian gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. As she cradled them in her arms, with Yates sitting beside her on the bed they shared, she marveled at how completely her life had transformed. "What shall we name them?" Yates asked, gently touching his daughter's tiny hand. "I thought maybe Elizabeth after your mother," Jillian suggested. "And for our son, James, after my grandfather, the only person in my family who ever showed me kindness." "Elizabeth and James Darrow," Yates tested the names. "Perfect." As the babies drifted to sleep, Yates drew Jillian close. "Do you know what today is?" "Of course. 1 year since you found me. 1 year since I found everything I never knew I was missing." He kissed her forehead. "Some might say I paid a high price that day." Jillian smiled, looking down at their sleeping children. "And what do you say?" "I say it was the best bargain I ever made." Outside, the Wyoming wind swept across the prairie, carrying the promise of tomorrow. Inside, surrounded by love and family, Jillian Darrow knew she had finally found where she belonged, not as property to be bought and sold, but as a woman valued beyond measure by the man who had seen her worth from the very beginning.